Thank you. Recording is in progress. It is, as you know, one more hybrid university, Asterousia Hybrid University, phase 2, phase B. And the first week of this, as you know, these universities were started already in 2014, with close collaboration of the Venice office, and particularly Philippe, with MIO and myself, and the University of Athens, the UNESCO chair for Sustainable Development Management and Education. The UNESCO Office for Science and Culture in Europe was always supporting us, and we have managed to keep and expand actually the summer universities into what is now the hybrid university, reaching a larger audience. This year we have more than 100 people who have registered. They come from different time zones, and this is an issue. However, we have here already some 30 persons, and more may join for the discussion. And we have received a number of questions on which we will start actually the discussion. Before moving into this work, perhaps we have with us the chairperson of the management board of the Asterousia Biosphere Reserve, Mrs. Theano Vrenchou, and of course the co-creator of this from the beginning, Mr. Philippe Pipaert from UNESCO, who may wish to say a few words in welcoming you, but also will have the opportunity to, as you know, have a very flexible way of discussion. So at any moment, we can actually interact and add things or whatever. So first of all, I would like to know if Theano wishes to say something.
Ακούγομαι, Μιχάλη?
Ναι, ναι.
Ακούγομαι. Να μιλήσω ελληνικά γιατί τα αγγλικά μου δεν είναι και πάρα πολύ καλά.
Δεν πειράζει, εντάξει. Okay.
Για να νιώθω πιο άνετα.
And I will make the translation, okay. She understands very well English, but yeah, okay.
But I have problem to speak English very well.
Okay.
Εγώ να ευχηθώ καλή χρονιά σε όλους.
Χαίρομαι
πάρα πολύ που συμμετέχουμε όλοι στη δεύτερη φάση του Υβριδικού Πανεπιστημίου Αστερουσίων, το οποίο διεξάγεται τα τελευταία 4 χρόνια και για το οποίο είμαστε πάρα πολύ ευτυχείς. Όλοι όσοι ασχολούμαστε. Θέλω να ευχαριστήσω τον κύριο Μιχάλη Σκούλο για όλη αυτή την προσπάθεια, την υποστήριξη που κάνει γενικότερα σίγουρα στο απόθεμα βιόσφαιρας των Αστερουσίων και γενικότερα για την προσφορά του και το έργο του όλα αυτά τα χρόνια, την αγάπη την οποία επιδεικνύει και την κατάθεση ψυχής την οποία δείχνει, γιατί πρέπει να πούμε ότι το έργο το οποίο επιτελεί είναι καθαρά κοινωνικό. Τουλάχιστον έτσι το αντιλαμβανόμαστε όλοι όσοι ασχολούμαστε με αυτό το υπέρτατο έργο, γιατί για μένα είναι υπέρτατο έργο η ανάδειξη του πολιτισμού, η διατήρηση, η υποστήριξη, η προβολή και η προώθηση όλων αυτών των μνημείων ανά τον κόσμο. Άρα, υπ' αυτή την έννοια, το έργο το οποίο επιτελεί ο κύριος Σκούλος θεωρώ ότι είναι υψής της σημασίας και βέβαια κοινωνικό σε πολύ μεγάλο βαθμό εξαιτίας της προσφοράς του. Για το απόθεμα βιόσφαιρας των αστερουσίων είμαστε πάρα πολύ περήφανοι. Τα αστερούσια είναι μια περιοχή που βρίσκονται στο νοτιότερο άκρο της Ευρώπης και φυσικά της Ελλάδος. Είναι μια περιοχή με ιδιαίτερο πολιτιστικό, ιστορικό, αρχαιολογικό υπόβαθρο με πάρα πολλά μνημεία και από πλευράς περιβάλλοντος και βέβαια από πλευράς ιστορίας με ιερά κορυφής, ασκληπιεία, βυζαντινά μοναστήρια, εκκλησίες, αρχαίες πόλεις, εξαιρετικά φαράγγια, λατρευτικά σπήλαια, μια περιοχή στην οποία ήκμασε ο ασκητισμός και από τα αστερούσια αργότερα μεταλαμπαδεύτηκε στο Άγιο Όρος. Να σταματήσω, μου κάνει μήνυμα από ό,τι βλέπω.
It is very difficult. You said many things. Anyhow, thank you very much, Theano. Theano wishes to everybody a Happy New Year. She confirmed her how happy she is for continuing the Asterousia Hybrid University for the 4th year in this format. And she said some very nice words about me and my contribution and the work in the region and in general social and other services. So thank you very much for that. I'm not going to translate though. And also she said that she emphasized the importance of Asterousia as a biosphere reserve and as a site because of this extremely rich cultural and natural heritage, environment and heritage in the region. She mentioned all the specific characteristics of the geomorphology, the fauna, the flora, the monuments, the caves, all the natural and man-made elements that make so special the Asterousia Biosphere Reserve. I don't know if you have concluded or you want to say something more, Theano.
Ναι, αυτό το οποίο θέλω να προσθέσω είναι ότι σαν Περιφέρεια Κρήτης και μέσα από το ΕΣΠΑ υποστηρίζουμε την ανάπτυξη γενικότερα και χαράσουμε μια στρατηγική για την στήριξη των περιοχών UNESCO, πάντα βέβαια σε συνεργασία με την Ελληνική Εθνική Επιτροπή Άνθρωπος και Βιόσφαιρα. Και αυτή την περίοδο βρισκόμαστε σε αυτό το στάδιο. Το τι θα κάνουμε την υπόλοιπη πενταετία στις περιοχές UNESCO Κρήτης και ιδιαίτερα στα αποθέματα βιόσφαιρας και όχι μόνο βέβαια, προκειμένου να υποστηρίξουμε το έργο το οποίο πρέπει να γίνει και για το οποίο έχουμε δεσμευτεί και σαν Τοπική Επιτροπή Διαχείρισης των Αστερουσίων για το απόθεμα.
Okay, thank you. Theano wanted also to emphasize that this is a moment where the periphery, the region of Crete, together with the management committee of Asterousia and in consultation also with the Greek National Committee of MAB UNESCO, try to elaborate and present the development part of the sustainable development part and activities for the region for the next 5 years. This involves a considerable budget from the European Union. And we do hope that this will be this negotiation, and this gets through also a public consultation, will be successful and beneficial for the Biosphere Reserve. Thank you very much. So I don't know if Philippe wants to say something welcoming and informing you, and then we move.
Thank you very much, Michael. Very, very shortly, because I don't want to take too much time out of the possible discussion with the participants. Just to say I'm very, very happy to be reconnected with all of you. And congratulations to the BioXT team and you, Professor Skoulas, for organizing these activities from quite a time now. And I was very lucky and happy to participate already in very early editions of these summer schools, and definitely very pleased to join forces to promote this vision and this idea that Biosphere Reserve are in fact a ground for approaching and addressing many aspects related to sustainable development. And in fact, that I'm very happy that this kind of key messages can be delivered so powerfully and constantly with your efforts. So thank you very much, Olga, Iro, Vicky, Vasilios. It's always a pleasure being with you, and I hope next time I could be also in the in-presence session as well, because that's very important. Experiencing places, I mean, it's so important, in particular when we then develop and promote a program like the Men, Women, and Biosphere. So that's very important, and I've been missing that for too long. So very happy to be with you.
We have missed you as well. We consider you as one of the founders of that. So thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Now, you know that this week, the first week, we had the presentation of the framework, the wider picture, references to...
If you want, I have this small presentation to make this more visual to people.
Yes,
it's easier
please.
Instead of...
Excellent. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Just 5 minutes to...
Yeah, excellent.
Okay. So... So welcome from my side as well to Phase B of Asterousia Hybrid University. As Professor Skoulas said, it's the 9th edition of such a university, and it's the 4th edition that it is combined with the Asterousia Biosphere Reserve. And if I'm not mistaken, it's the 4th time that it's in hybrid form. So after COVID, we merged the live meeting, the face-to-face meeting, with this condensed online meeting. So you have already met our experts for the week, Mr. Arnaud Vrenzou from the Management Board of Asterousia BR, and Mr. Philippe Paert, who is a long-standing friend and ambassador of these universities. Maybe I present only the framework of this 3-work online course, and then we move to the questions that you have posed already in Slido, and to the open discussion we can have together with you. Thank you all. Most of you I see with having cameras on, and since we know each other, we know many of you, this is very pleasant to have this discussion. We would like to invite you to remove any distractions that you may have, and keep the chat box open for interaction. Also, maybe Vicky, you can share the Slido link where we have been...
Yes, I did already. Thank you.
Okay, where we have been exchanging some questions based on the content that you followed in the platform itself. So, as Professor Skoulas was saying before, it's a 3-week content curriculum, and let's say that we break it in 3 weeks, where this week we discuss about the general sustainable development agenda and the framework of the UNESCO MAB program and the BR functions. We get to know better the Asterousia BR. As Theano said before, it's a very eager BR, and we are very happy to have met all the people there. And I think that all the people that visit this area become ambassadors of this BR. And as you have seen also in the presentations of this week, there is a robust plan from the periphery to support the BR with many activities. We have a general discussion about sustainable development issues, particularly SDG 6 that focuses on water. Next week, we delve deeper into issues of integrated water management, policies, methods, applications, tools for managers, and so on. And we discuss also we focus also on non-conventional water resources. And on week 3, we will discuss more about water and education and how we can communicate better all that we do. I think I went over this already. Maybe a brief on the group of learners, the people that have already registered for this course. Since this morning, we have 108 applications from 31 countries. You can see the Mediterranean countries in blue highlight. And already since Monday, when we opened the course, 35 people have logged in to follow content, and around 10 people have posed questions to the experts. Maybe since we have around 30 people here, you can note in chat how much you have progressed with the content of the course. So you can note from 0 if you haven't yet logged into the platform, up to 3 if you have completed all the videos and the readings of the week, so that we have a general idea how much you have progressed. I see a lot of 3s. We have the good students with us. One of the first things that we asked you was to share with us also in the Padlet your views on sustainability. This is something that we ask as first question in every such course. So some key phrases that you used in your own words, of course, have to do with future generations and ensuring that they live a worthwhile to live a life, as some of you said. Many of you said that it's a way of living for you, a state of mind, and has to do with your daily choices. It has to do a lot with your consumption habits, but also your love and care for nature. And for many of you, it's a lifetime commitment in your lives. So that's all for me, Professor. You're muted still.
Thank you very much. You actually facilitate the start of this. Well, I understand that Theano tries to reach me, but I cannot do that at the moment. I propose to start with the questions in the order that some of these questions have been received here. This is the way in which we have them. Some of the questions can be combined, and perhaps in the first one, which comes from Monica, is this first question is about, I read it, if I understand it properly, I will try to answer it. The question is, why don't we have an SDG only for only freshwater ecosystems. The life below water, 14, doesn't include fresh water, only salty water, which are placed, actually, ecosystems, terrestrial ecosystems, are placed inside life on land under SDG 15. I will try to answer this, and of course, Philippe may intervene, and both of us will try to answer some of these questions. There is an interesting note from Anonymous saying that isn't SDG 6 the reply to Monica's question? To a certain extent, yes, he is right. The big problem with SDGs, and this took several years to discuss and agree finally to these 17 SDGs, is that we had too many issues to be covered. And this is, I mean, the number at the end of the day is the minimum necessary in order to cover relatively well the entire agenda. So DG6 is for all functions of water, is water management, and we will discuss this next week. It is management, and management not only of the quantity and quality of water, but also of the distribution of water between anthropogenic activities to serve, to contribute in addressing basic needs of the society, starting from domestic uses of water to drinkable water, to clean houses or our bodies, agriculture, moving to also the necessary water for healthy ecosystems. So the idea of integrated management requires to have, at the same time that we manage the needs of the society, to address as a societal need, but also as a respect to creation, if you wish, to nature itself, as an intrinsic value, the water for nature, the water for the ecosystems. So SDG 6 covers the idea of the entire spectrum, including nature, and there is additional reference under DG 15, where we explain also there the right, if you wish, the need and the right of ecosystems to receive enough water at the end of the day in order to be healthy and provide nature-based solutions and ecosystem services. So I think it is well covered. The reference to SDG 14, it is not, again, only for the ecosystems, for the marine ecosystems. It is the entire all the functions of the ocean, from regulator of the climate to provider of food through fisheries, including aquacultures, and even minerals, and also providing the space for maritime activities. So we need to understand the SDGs, each one as dealing with a particular area and focus in an integrated way, addressing in an integrated way some of the naturally connected aspects, and at the same time understanding that horizontally many of these SDGs have to be taken together in order to address the very big issues. And let me add here that there was an issue of where the sanitation should be, under health or under 6. And it was decided to be mostly under 6 because at the end of the day, sewage, the way we treat sewage under sanitation is very important also for the future use of water, because we will discuss in our next week the non-conventional water resources, to explain that sewage is the only new source of water, particularly under the stress of climate change. This is a valuable source of water, this new water, as we say, that needs to be, of course, of very high quality to be reused properly in agriculture and other sources. So this is my reply for that. I don't know if on this question, Philippe wants to add something.
Thank you, Michael. Very briefly, that's a very interesting question, of course, and calling for many reflections. And I totally agree with you that then integrated management requires that we cross the borders of these boxes we have created to contain objectives and targets. And that's how probably our brains and our systems work. I mean, to make decisions and try to mobilize forces to achieve concrete targets and objectives. And as someone pointed out in the discussion, of course, looking in particular at the benefits for humans in this regard. But of course, we have to cross those borders, and something I've explained, mentioning the equihydrology, for example, that's a very interesting story in UNESCO. You have to understand that in the 90s, a program had been developed under the MAB program, Men and Biosphere. So let's say under SDG 15 to explore the value of ecotones, so the interaction between the aquatic system and then terrestrial system, recognizing that there were pieces of our planet with a very interesting dynamics and productivity and interest. So to be studied as we did. Then in late 90s, beginning of the year 2000, we developed the equihydrology concept under the IHP, so the water program of UNESCO. So who cares about the ownership of this ID? But what we were exploring there, and we are still exploring, is how we combine our understanding of the ecological system and hydrological system for the benefit of the environment and humans. So we work in a combined and integrated way to conserve wetlands and use them as a buffer zone for flooding, which is a physical issue, and security issue, which is also addressing SDG 6, by the way. But in the same time, we can have a biomass productivity, we can have a biodiversity or ecosystem restoration going together with, you see, we combine objectives, and we can use lakes to capture nutrients or depollute waters as we have done. So this series of things we are exploring. And what is very interesting, and I showed you that in my presentation, at a certain point right now, we are considering that this concept of ecohydrology perfectly applies to biosphere reserves. So let's, instead of developing separate ecohydrology demo sites, let's concentrate on the sites we already have called biosphere reserves, which are not just there for achieving SDG 15, but in that case, to work on many dimensions of SDG 6, but of course, many others, because it's related to food production, it's related to energy, it's related to security, and many aspects of our life. So that's an invitation, in fact, your question to, in fact, cross the borders and concepts like integrated management push us to do so. And I'll give you a very last example. This is from Japan. We have a biosphere reserve there. I don't remember the name. It's on the mountain. So it's definitely mainly dedicated to conserving forest and all related ecosystems there, with working with the community. But that's also the mountain where the river flowing to Yokohama city, so a big city, is starting. It's a stream, and they are developing the consciousness that to have quality water in a big city like Yokohama, you need people caring about maintaining a forest on a mountain 200 kilometers far from there. And that's very interesting. And that's a biosphere reserve. So again, even if you don't have the impression you work on a water issue there, there's no way to have good water quality and quantity in a big city if you don't work and let's say cooperate with people dealing mainly with forest maintenance on a mountain. So just a very interesting case again. So we cross the borders of our designation, of our SDGs, of our programs, and all this is due because we want to promote integrated management. And at the end of the day, it's one planet, one human community, one common future for all. So if we don't do that, in fact, we will never succeed, I think, to assure this kind of vision and objectives.
Thank you very much, Philippe. Actually, this is an issue we may discuss for hours. One of the ways, as Philippe mentioned, how we cross and reintegrate different things is now, for example, since agriculture was mentioned, food was mentioned, is the so-called nexus of the WIFE nexus, the water, energy, food ecosystem nexus. And I'm going to discuss and present also some things in next week. But what we are discussing here is that we go beyond the SDGs. We have to take into account what Philippe mentioned, the source to sea, the whole source to sea flow of water. And these two concepts are now guiding our new policies. And we had already, with the different organizations, international UN bodies and others, progress on that a few months ago. And in the coming weeks, we are going to have a meeting in Tunisia on WIFE. It's the second roundtable, because when we will discuss also policies, we are going to have to draft jointly with different organizations a strategy for WIFE nexus in the region, in the Mediterranean region. And this is exactly how we can benefit from the work that has been done also in SDGs, but also in other areas. And we cannot any longer solve the water problems or the ecosystem problems alone. We need actually to see how we can benefit, we can enhance the win-win approaches, increasing the area of policies from water and energy, that these two are so much driving forces and receiving the impacts of climate change, but at the same time, so important both for the production of food and with impacts on the environment. So there is always a development also in policies and in ways in which we try, under the current crisis we have, to do something smart and address in a better, more efficient way the different problems. Now, the next question is addressed to you, Philippe. Can you explain how the 5 biosphere reserves around the Po River collaborate with each other and other agencies for the river management?
Thank you very much. That's an interesting case, in fact, because those designations came in different times, and we started with Monviso and the Ticino related rivers close to Milan, and then Po Delta, Collina Po, and Po Grande. What's interesting and to see all of them, and this depends very much on the basin authority for the Po River, and realizing and considering that having already so many biosphere reserves covering a big part of that basin makes sense and makes a kind of difference in the way this could be managed, because they have to address, of course, water security, energy, transportation, different issues. And definitely the biosphere reserve brought under the spotlight even the idea of conserving ecosystems and species in and around the river stream itself.
Olga, μπορείς να κατέβεις.
And so that depends on the river basin. I met several years ago and confirmed that in fact they wanted to have a kind of coordination and considering them. So calling them in some meetings, elaboration and implementation on some plans or parts of plans. So as far as this could be part of their competencies and responsibilities. So in that case, differently from another example we have with the Dordogne River, where this is an entire basin becoming a biosphere reserve. Here we have different biosphere reserve and having a kind of coordination because they belong to a same basin authority. So they've not established any particular or additional system for their coordination outside the river basin authority itself. I don't know if this reply to your question. I think they could do more, definitely, and we would be very proud and happy to see that there's even more consideration. But that's something we have beyond now the issue of a river basin. That's something we have in many countries, but in particular in Italy, for example, I know very well. So you have regions with a lot of World Heritage sites and biosphere reserve, and so a big portion of those territories are already under a kind of UNESCO designation. Then you question the political side and ask them, what does that mean to you? Except that you are very famous, you are very beautiful, you can attract more tourists. And very, very rarely I have heard politicians telling me, oh yeah, it's part of a vision for the development of that area or that region or that country. And that's where we have failed many times. I have to recognize with the program, because beyond guaranteeing that you were conserving a piece of land and contributing to SDG 15 or 13. We were not highlighting anything else. And so the politicians were doing the same. And so they say, okay, it's part of a conservation scheme, but then when it comes to development, to tourism, to industry and infrastructure, it's a serious business, and we don't discuss with the UNESCO side. That's a failure if we don't have an influence at that level. So I'm using that in more general terms, and what's true for general territory is true for a river basin. It's always a challenge. Does it make sense now that you have 5 biosphere reserve part of your territory as a river basin? And we have discussions with other river authorities in Italy, for example, but also in other parts of the world. We have the same issue with the Danube, for example, or the Volga River. I remember we had also discussions in Greece about that same issue. So, okay, you can have a designation, that's one thing, but then what will be the impact of this designation on policies? Because again, we deal with SDGs and not only one. Is still a big issue. Of course, river basin offer, again, a great opportunity to advance on that, because you have at least something clear about objectives and issues you want to address in a kind of coordinated way. So can the Biosphere Reserve be a tool in the hands of politicians, of basin authorities to achieve their goals? That's the big question. But we need also to have the same vision in the Biosphere Reserve themselves, so that there can be something very relevant in that context, and not always then local managers have that kind of vision very clear. I have to be very honest. Thank you, Ineke, for the question.
To interrupt, we have some people with us from the Po catchment area and the biosphere reserves, if they want to add to what you are saying. And Professor Skoulos, just to point out that we have a question also in the chat regarding the impact of mass tourism in the water management. So coming from the Himalaya region, if you can say it also in the chat.
Okay, fine. Thank you. So you can take the floor, the ones from the Po River, if they wish to.
Po Grande Biosphere Reserve, yes.
Okay.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody. So my name is Clara Spicer, and there's also my colleague Ludovica Romello, who is joined in on this session. So we both actually work for the River Po Basin Authority, which at the same time is also the managing entity of the Po Grande Biosphere Reserve. So the River Po Basin Authority, this was a very good question that was posed, and we were hoping that it was going to be asked. And it's interesting to see that along the River Po, there are 5 separate biosphere reserves. The River Po Basin District Authority has in some way, in some form or another, been around for many years. These biosphere reserves, less so. For example, Po Grande was recognized in 2019. So the relationship between these biosphere reserves, we can say, is newer with respect to the work that the River Basin Authority does. One aspect that we can say is that the River Po Basin Authority has a larger view over this area. And by also being the managing entity of the Po Grande Biosphere Reserve, we are able to kind of coordinate and put together all of the different biosphere reserves together, which is what we are actually working on this year. And we have recently got together with the other biosphere reserves along the River Po to come to an agreement as, okay, we have objectives in common because we all work along the river. So we all are working towards protecting or promoting the same aspect. What can we do to help each other? We have many projects in common, but we also need to be careful not to do the same things twice, if that makes sense. So it doesn't make sense for one biosphere reserve to build a project from the ground up and then another reserve to do the same thing when we could use the same resources and put them together and work together in a much more efficient way. There is also the fact that there are also many spaces, many areas along the River Po that are not under the jurisdiction of a biosphere reserve. So this could also be another step in the future to make sure that these gaps are covered, to ensure that the whole of the River Po at some point in the future comes under some sort of UNESCO protection. Of course, this foresees the involvement of all of the biosphere reserves along the River Po. Then there are not only the 5 biospheres along the River Po within our area, there are also others such as the biosphere Appennino, Toscana, Emilia-Romagna. There are also some Alpe Giulie, if I'm not mistaken. And so there are also many other aspects, many other biosphere reserves that we can work together with. A short introduction. I hope that's answered the question a little bit.
Thank you very much. It is important. I don't know if Philippe wants to come back.
Yeah,
to
that's
that.
very quickly, because that's very, very important issue. And I think we have different also examples that could help us understanding sometimes the difficulty to bring all this on a common table and try to coordinate decisions and actions in different directions. For example, still in Italy, we have the Tagliamento River, which is in big parts the basin in mountain and quite well conserved. But then with a floodplain and some big cities having a huge risk of flooding on the lower course of that river. And so to promote the idea that the entire basin could become a biosphere reserve, the difficulty we've faced so far is just to combine these very two different aspects. While a lot of people upstream would like to increase the natural characteristic of that river basin, which is already nice, and control sometimes the dams, the building of dams for energy production and flood control. In the lower stream, they are just afraid a big flood could come again, and so they have a completely different approach. And so far, this has been the main reason why that entire area could not become a biosphere reserve. This is the same kind of challenge we have faced and overcome so far in the Mura-Drava-Danube river corridor with 5 countries in that case, and but with similar issues which had to be addressed. On the upper stream, Slovenia, Austria have built a lot of dams for hydropower. And so the stream is really very much transformed. While, for example, in Croatia and share with Hungary and also a big part in Serbia, you have less dams and more natural stream of the river. And so some countries are saying to the other, why should we limit our possibility to generate energy and control floods in the way you have done it upstream, and vice versa? Now, how can we compensate the fact that we maintain a more natural stream in our part of this river basin? So these are huge discussions, and you see that because we have to also integrate different functions of a river basin and of a basin authority, combined with the nature conservation and other objectives. What's very interesting that in any case, they overcome this and just not to transform the system in one day, but then because they're in a process of improving that and realizing that in any case, yes, they have to think about compensation mechanisms, they have to think about a common policy for development, and they have a lot of projects to develop tourism all along that stream and similar things. So that's very, very interesting to observe. In fact, it's of course not an easy task, but in that case, I'm happy to see that then bringing the biosphere reserve concept in the picture helps somehow in 2 or 3 decades to overcome some difficulties, or in any case to offer a ground for more cooperation among stakeholders and bringing this vision of multi-purpose, or let's say, or integrated management again of a big resource, but also big risk like water bring to the society.
Yes, thank you very much, Philippe. To conclude on that, there is no easy recipe about the size and the way we decide about the biosphere reserve. It is a case-by-case decision always. Philippe knows well that we had also a summer university in Parnon in Peloponnese, where they have practically a biosphere reserve already, but we have not submitted yet the formal application to UNESCO. Perhaps this September, I think we will. And the reason behind is, from that time on, the size of that. Are we going to include a big town like Sparta in this? Are we going to expand and have the famous Mistras area also as part of it? So the delineation of the borders are also political, apart from, because all this area is definitely interesting and worthy to be included. But we need to see how this area is going to be governed. And when you include too many actors, you may have problem. Equally, if you don't include them, you have problems. So we try to see what is the optimal solution in order to have a workable scheme. And this is always one of the important elements for biosphere reserves that we need from the beginning in order to have these areas also as laboratories of sustainable development. We need also to include perhaps also major actors, not only small settlements, but also more important towns and cities there. And this is a very still we try to find the best way to do it. So we may move to the next questions. The next question is by Marvik, and I read it. Can you please share ideas what common people can do personally as persons and nationally, I guess, as community, collectively, if possible, to help improve and reach SDG 6, besides being sustainable, spread word. Actually, if I understand well, I mean, what we can do more than ourselves being, let's say, responsible as persons. I will try to answer this, and perhaps Philip may add something. Well, first of all, I believe that when we are talking about a person, we are talking about our responsibility or opportunity as an individual citizen, but also as an individual professional in our professional life. Perhaps we don't have the equal degrees of freedom in both, but we as persons, we are also citizens, and we have some role in the society through our profession or through our participation in civil society organizations, NGOs, and other things. So the first, as persons, citizens, we have two powers mainly, or three. The power of our vote as voters, deciding on programs of different politicians, and our power as consumers. We can buy what we find more sustainably actually produced. Then as professionals, we have many, of course. If we are in a leadership group in a company or in a bank or in a school, or we can influence policies. Also, we can do things. And I mean, the one thing is, as I said, voters, consumers, lobbyists also. I mean, what we say, apart from, I mean, spreading the word, as Marwick said. The other thing is also, I mean, we need to be vocal. We need to prepare ourselves to present these ideas to bigger groups. But at the same time, I think the paradigm is very important. What we are doing through our choices, as I said, but these choices, to a certain extent, have to be communicated. So I think these are important things, dealing with water, going one step further, collecting, for example, if we have a country house or whatever, the rainwater, reusing gray water, doing things that go beyond just water economy, which is very important also. When you can influence as a teacher or as a member of a company through the purchases, through the way in which you select green products, green services, and so on and so forth. I think particularly when we move from individual to national, what it was said here, national or collective decisions, there is a lot of room for improvement. To give you an idea, I cannot give the exact figure because I don't have it, but we are talking about hundreds of billions of euros is the value of purchases in the European Union by local authorities, by public authorities, and by organizations. In many of these organizations, including CSOs, NGOs, and others, the purchase policy is still very low. There is no rule what products have or can be purchased and which cannot. And there is a list there are many lists about the footprint of different products, water footprint of different products, so you can make choices. This is my reply. I don't know if on this Philippe would like to say something.
Totally agree with you, Michael. And I just would like to add something. So we probably respond also to another question in the list, which was what's the most important message, if only one, we have only one, about climate change. And what I will say now, it's about climate change, about water, it's about sustainable development in general. I think in doing all what you said, Michael, what's very important is that we transfer, we spread very consciously and clearly the concept of solidarity. It's not about my home, it's not about my family, my town, my country, it's about the planet. And as someone said about water, we are all upstream and downstream someone else. So we have to really develop that consciousness, that even if there's a lot of water in my country, I have to care about it the same, because that's about what we have to do collectively. And that's so often the most difficult part in what we do. And when we try to now elaborate these concepts, having a very limited, especially a very limited vision, while we are really on the same boat. And I think that's very important. I think that's why those, not only the concept, but for example, networks like the Biosphere Reserve, which is a world network, and intergovernmental programs are very important, because we try to develop that kind of consciousness and solidarity concept in practice, and really try to spread this spirit. Which is the very important and necessary one. If we fail in that, then we could have a lot of technical solutions for particular situation, particular places, but then the planet is failing the same to be a safe and sustainable place where the entire humanity can survive. I mean, that's really a concern today, more than ever, I would say.
Thank you very much, because I mean, what you said, Philippe, is the ethical value on the value that we try to build, the consciousness about the environment. At the same time, we need to show everybody, also those who put values somewhere in a different, let's say, in a different bubble, and they do think about, but they don't act accordingly. That going back to climate, that climate change is actually threatening our survival on this planet. And we don't have the right vis-a-vis the next generations, which is ethical. On the other hand, we need at the same time to show that even this generation, even our property, even our material environment and goods, our economy, therefore our social, our tissue, all that is threatened by climate change. So if there is, the most important thing is that climate change is not just a change of temperature or a change of, let's say, a few parameters that we can somehow manage with adaptation, or partly with also mitigation. It is already a change factor of our life, of our economy, of our societies, and we cannot deal with this with business as usual. We cannot allow or encourage only politicians to deal with that. It is something that affects our life, and we have to understand that. And we need to rush. We are already very late. We have lost already the cryosphere, big part of Arctica, big part of mountain ice caps. These cannot be replaced. We have moved already in the irreversible part, and it's very, 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 very urgent to move very fast, understanding that what we are doing is solidarity, as Philippe said, not only among this, but also with the next generation. So it is very important, this message to be understood by everybody. Okay, I don't know if those who put the questions are satisfied, or if you don't, you may have the chance to come back. So I ran a little bit because we don't have too much time. I have a question by Ioannis. How do you measure sustainable development in the context of transition areas? I'm not quite sure if I understand the question here. How do you classify which anthropogenic activities are sustainable? So I think that these are two questions or three questions. The one is, how do you measure sustainable development? Then it is more specific in the context of transition areas. If I understand well, perhaps Ioannis could take the floor and clarify. The transition areas, you mean between fresh and salt water? I mean the brackish water?
No, I think it's referred to the Biosphere Reserve concept, core, buffer, and transition zone.
Yes, it was.
Okay.
The question was, I watched the 12-minute presentation by Mr. Pipar, and
Okay.
he had the zoning.
Okay, in the zoning. So, how we classify which anthropogenic activities are sustainable. This time, do you want to start, Philippe, and I come after you, or you want me to start?
Oh, yeah, okay, that's fine with me, and thank you very much. That's a very, very interesting question. And again, as you said, we don't have so much time, but then I hope we could develop that further after this afternoon session. What I wanted to say about that is, first of all, even if, of course, the transition area, according to the concept of Biosphere Reserve, is the place where we have human settlements, activities, we consider that Biosphere Reserve as a whole, so the three areas combined, contribute to sustainable development, which does not mean at all that all of them are champions of the 17 SDGs and are perfect places on Earth. So this is a process of working towards achieving some of them more than others, but in any case, to try to have this kind of virtuous approaches and activities. So we have no specific standards for the MAP program in the Biosphere Reserve to assess then how much they contribute to that. We just, if we speak about SDGs and a contribution to achieving them, so of course we would look at the conservation function and how they contribute to objective 13, 15, but as we have understood, they contribute to SDG 6. In some countries, we work very hard, and this is the priority. It's poverty alleviation. It's about health. It's about justice. You see, can be, according to the context, focus on something different in different places, but then we refer to those standards and target sets for the SDGs. We have not a particular. If I may, because I think it's really interesting, I'd like to share my screen and show you very quickly an example coming from. Do you see it? It's
yes.
It's a web page from Portugal, and I invite you to go and visit it. It's just look for Biosphere Reserve, Portuguese Biosphere Reserve, and you will come immediately to that site. So this is an investment made by the Ministry of Environment. They have a number of Biosphere Reserves. You see 12 in the mainland and in islands, and they've created this dashboard. And they want to show to the public, but also to scientists, to politicians, that in fact Biosphere Reserve are there to serve different objectives. And so they want to report. They're committed to report and show that. And you see, it's about people, it's about nature, it's about economy, it's about energy, and many, many aspects. So they present the Biosphere Reserve, and you can really invite you to explore it. See, they will tell you about demography, the economy, the local economy, of course, trends in the nature conservation, water aspect could be there, tourism, and so on. And they even more clearly refer to, you see, the SDGs. So this is a dashboard for all Biosphere Reserve in the country, and you can go one by one to see how, in particular, in a particular context, a Biosphere Reserve have been let's say, a tool to eradicate poverty. You see, of course, to think about education. So even educational tools. We have worked a lot, of course. I don't have to tell that to Michael and the friends in my XD. All this issue of using Biosphere Reserve as powerful tool to educate people about sustainable development, ESD education. But you see, they work on water, and you will see statistics. So it's not just a kind of overall impression we have. There are places like Paradise on Earth. They report very specifically using the criteria and showing figures and statistics to show you about energy. Of course, some islands there have the windmills, others have hydropower. But you see, it's also about innovation, infrastructure, justice, and so on. So that's very, very interesting. And just to tell you, that's what we expect. Not all countries have that possibility to report in such a detailed way, but that's what we expect from them. And so that's how also Biosphere Reserve at a certain point can be used as models. Models does not mean you do everything perfect, but you can inspire people and let them commit themselves to try to do the same. So if we do it for one island, which is a Biosphere Reserve, why don't you do the same for every island? So try to follow the models. And again, I think it's also the power of a network like that. So we have to address very complicated issues and complex issues like integrated water management, sustainable development in general. But then we can come to very practical example. And let's start from there. There are people on the front line of climate change, of justice, of eradication of poverty, and they do it in a territory designated by UNESCO. Use it as a model to inspire other places like that, but also policies. I think in Portugal in particular, the MAP program has really a political impact. Means if you have to make a tourist development policy for the entire country, could be water management, could be, of course, nature conservation and other. This is an influential network in the country. It's the ambition we have for the entire and the global network. Again, not all of them work like that. We still have places where people think it's just about nature conservation. But let's say we go in that direction towards achieving similar things everywhere. So voilà, very quickly, really, I invite you to explore it because it's really, really exciting and could give a lot of good ideas to many of you on what could be done better and to impact around us, not just in the network, but around the network.
Thank you very much. Very valuable.
I'll send you the link.
Please, so, the link. Okay. Yes, absolutely. And also, I would like to say, I mean, what is important. I mean, there are always two philosophies in that. The one is saying that we have a flexible scheme with the Biosphere Reserve. So whatever positive you manage through that is for the benefit of the environment, the society, or whatever. And there is another approach that says we need to have very concrete, specific criteria to measure exactly. We don't have that yet in the Biosphere Reserves. One thing that is no regret measure for that always is to have a clear baseline from the moment, even now, I mean, the moment that a Biosphere Reserve is part of the network, to have some metrics. This is necessary to see what is the water consumption in the area, what is the energy consumption, what is the percentage of the employment in the area, the distribution of the population, all a series of metrics or parameters, and follow them in every 2-3 years in a reporting scheme. This is a starting point. Using SDGs is another. Many times, particularly sometimes countries, but particularly companies, use this in a very cryptic way, which is a little bit a greenwashing, which we don't like. We want to have proper metrics, and this is important to make sure that what we report is something concrete, measurable, and non-disputed. I give you only one thing, that we are now, we have a real explosion of what we call ESG for companies: environment, social governance. And this ESG, now there are, is one, the global reporting initiative, and many other initiatives giving very specific ways in which you calculate your waste production, your energy, your in the direct and indirect way. There are ways in which you can measure also the footprint, the environmental footprint in every area or in every company, so or every major activity. So we are moving now towards this direction, the direction of assessment of the different schemes, because we have to prove also that what we are pledging, what we are preaching for, actually is correct. So there are these opportunities for you. I may also put some systems of measuring, some references, not directly directly relevant with the biosphere reserves, but measuring the activities of major economic actors within these areas. And I think very soon, perhaps in the coming 2-3 years, we will move to a more systematic way to assess the sustainability of these areas. It is a need that we have to address. Of course, it is a politically sensitive and difficult issue, but I think that we are moving towards this direction.
Sorry to interrupt this very interesting and broad discussion that is very valuable for week 1, and thank you both for that. Just to be a little bit mindful of time, because we have, according to the official schedule, 5 more minutes, and people may have committed a certain time of their afternoon. So if we can compress your replies and maybe leave some things for next week, or I don't know.
Okay. So the questions here is there any tracking or reporting system for MAP program and biosphere reserves? I think I have answered this already. Martina asks if we can somehow capitalize on the first week for further educational programs engaging people living in the BRs. I think yes, the answer is yes. We have considered and we are using already this for the specific biosphere reserve, but it can be also used for other BRs. Usually we produce some educational material taking into account this, not making specific reference to that, but this is a good idea, an additional thing we can do. Anna Maria asks, is integrated water management a topic for academics, university students, scientists, politicians? Should we make it more relevant for the wider public, and how? We are going to discuss the integrated water management next week. And I keep this question also for the next Friday. Yes, we can and we need. It is part of the dissemination of integrated management plans. And actually, if we use the Water Framework Directive, for example, as approaching the IWRM for Europe, also the public participation and information is part of this. So yes, and how I don't give you the information now. Let's keep it for next time. What are the recommendations presented on the day 5 by of phase 1? I think Eero will
yes,
discuss
this is
that.
integrated in the next week. So we have a specific unit for these recommendations.
Excellent.
In week 2.
Yeah. We have discussed the next one on the most important messages for climate change. And there is one more question about data. And the question is, what are the biggest issue with data management for improved use for policies? The lack of trained people or lack of data exchange? And how can those be solved? A third is the most important. The lack of data at the first place. So we don't have enough data. The second is that many of these data are in boxes, not shared, not validated, not exposed, let's say, to critique. And this is an important thing. And as you say, the lack of trained people with memory, because data require also, don't forget how we move to the policy. We need to have data. Data becomes a useful information, is a different thing. From data to go to information requires skills. From information, we build also with memory knowledge, and knowledge management requires the previous steps. So knowledge management and knowledge inform policies. So we need all these steps, and now we also in international organizations, including the European Union, with the changes we have for avoiding corruption, though that they change all the time, people every 3 years from one DG to another, a lot of the expertise, knowledge, and memory is lost. And this is one important issue, in addition to the lack of trained people. We cannot retrain every 3 years the people. So it is also there, but we don't know how to deal with data, and also how to fill in a meaningful way the data gaps. We have few 23,000 satellites providing data. And still we have lack of data for the water bodies that are used by most of us. So there is a missing, let's say, a part of data that cannot be supplied by, for example, the satellites. On the other hand, there are data from satellites that are not used and can help us to prevent many of the floods, for example, because we can predict with that. It's not like the earthquakes. So we have a lot to do with this area, with the data and how to deal with the data to address the major challenges of the future. So from me, I think we have managed to.
Philip wants to say something.
Philip wants to say something, and if some of you want to say something as well.
Give me 30 seconds on this very important topic. That's, again, a huge question. My personal vision on that is the main issue and problem is in the process, is in the middle, is how we we arrange the meeting and the cooperation among those who have to decide and those who have to develop the knowledge we need to make sound decisions. And when I say it's in the process, I think we should see, again, more integration among those two. There's not a community owning a knowledge and having data and models who have the solution that had something to sell to those who have to make a decision. They have to work in very close cooperation. And it's important that even those developing that knowledge and data gathering and so on, monitoring, have to understand what are really the issues the politicians and the decision makers have in mind and have to solve. So there's, like for the management of a biosphere reserve, we like the science can help management, but this is not decided by the scientists, it's decided by the managers. So these two communities have to work really closely. I like very much even a concept developed again in the European context, for example, called knowledge brokering. So it's all about the process of how you bring the necessary knowledge being available to those who have to make a decision. And sometimes you discover that even those making decisions have a part of the knowledge you need or they need to make a sound decision, but they just don't know. They have that capacity. And so, okay, there would be much to develop on that, but just to give you a tip or so and explore a bit in that direction, it is very, very important issue.
Thank you very much, Philip. You are absolutely right. I agree. This is one of the reasons. Now, if there are any requests from the floor for a few minutes, perhaps we have left some of the questions unanswered. We are here to try to address them all.
A topic that was also raised in this chat, and maybe we can think of it also in the next week's meeting, is the impact of tourism on sensitive ecosystems and the water management. You kind of touched it, but maybe it's something that we will have the opportunity to discuss also next week.
The only thing I want to say is that we know already of different areas that decide to be the citizens, but also the tourist industry to actually declare these areas touristically saturated. And there are more and more now islands or areas that consider this aspect, thinking particularly in relatively closed systems like islands, because they take into account also what this extra tourism means for their natural resources, for energy, for water, for bringing additional resources from outside. All these kind of things are now reconsidered, because until recently we had only the economic value taken into account. Now we have to take into account all other aspects and of sustainability, the social and environmental. So the feasibility studies are different, and also the cycle of production or service has become more complex, with more information, allowing for better decision making, taking into account also the future. I don't know if we may come back to that again in the next 2 weeks. Any other question?
I don't see any hands, and I don't see anything in the chat. And so I would like to take this opportunity. Philip just shared his email also, to thank both of you, very experienced, and I think what we discussed today is complementary to to what you have been reading in the bulk of the week 1. So I would like to thank everybody, and especially Philip and our professor, for holding this interesting discussion, combining both the wider vision and at the same time some very concrete examples of good cases taking place around the world. And I don't know, that's all from me.
Okay, thank you. And to all of you, don't hesitate to put questions to us. We'll try to combine them, and it stimulates the discussion. So thank you very much. And we are here to discuss and comment on your questions. Thank you very much, and have a nice weekend.
Thank
See
you
you next
all.
week. Bye.
See you soon. See you soon,
Professor
hopefully.
Skoulos and Mr. Papayet. Bye.
Thank you all.
Goodbye.
Bye, Philip. Bye,
Bye-bye.
Theano.